Oh, there we are. You can see it on YouTube.
We're ready. Just put do not disturb on.
Hello and welcome. So fun to be here. Thanks, Gina, for joining me. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really excited to be on this very hot day in a nice air-conditioned office to join you.
I know, I'm very jealous of your air conditioning. I literally just said to you, I feel a little bit naked at the moment, so apologies for my shoulders being out. But it's so hot. Sorry for being that person to talk about the weather straight away. So we're so excited to be collaborating together, Mash Media, Selling Savvy. This is our first of, well, we've got 6 planned, haven't we? But maybe more. We'll see how we get on. So our first Confidence Converts session. And shall we introduce ourselves? Do you want to go first, Gina?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, I'm Gina Kay, the marketing manager for International Confex, and I've actually used to work on Exhibition News, and before that I used to work at Newcastle University doing their events for the School of Engineering. Yeah, I've been in the industry for probably 6 or 7 years now, and I did my degree in events management, and yeah, I absolutely love kind of the ethos of Confex and Selling Savvy, and we've done some work before, and we're really excited to kind of build on this confidence element for the events industry and really kind of bring together what we both do best to really dive into the topic.
Yeah, amazing. Great. Well, hi, I'm Kate. I run Selling Savvy. We are sales training for the event hospitality industry. So we support all sorts of businesses, but purely within that industry. Can't tell you anything about anything else, I'm afraid. But yeah, and then we've collaborated with Mash Media for several years now, mostly obviously with Jack, and then you came on board just before Christmas, Q4 last year.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to come onto Confex like 4 or 5 months ago. But yeah, we worked really, really kind of hard in making sure that Confex 2025 was the best one yet.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I felt that. I felt that in terms of the engagement, the conversations we were having, the general kind of buzz. There was definitely a buzz and excitement about it. And I also know how hard you worked. So kudos to you and the team.
Yeah.
So I think it would be good, maybe we can have a chat about confidence and what it kind of means, and maybe why we chose this topic for our little mini series. I don't know if you want to start talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really kind of such a, having come from being a student and also then kind of working on the 30 under 30s that we do, and kind of looking at all the different sessions that we do, one topic consistently comes up again and again, whether you're just starting out of the industry, whether you're in an agency, or whether if you're in a venue, confidence and imposter syndrome keeps coming up. And we really just wanted to make an informal series this year to actually kind of give people, whether you're exhibiting or you're visiting or you're just passing by or you just see a clip, about how we can really kind of exude confidence and how that can help you convert in your job role, and how it can really kind of make a difference whether you're an event professional behind the scenes or whether or not you're presenting at Confex itself.
Yeah. And I love that. I think it was really interesting when you approached me about this, because you'd obviously been thinking about confidence and how it has impacted so many different groups of people that you've come across in your role. And I had been thinking about it totally separately, because obviously running workshops every day with sales teams, we're constantly delving into skills and conversations and relationships with clients. And the thing that comes up, no matter if we're talking consultative selling, negotiation, upselling, closing, all of it is about confidence. And I was finding that every time I was talking to people, I was like, you just got to be confident, and sometimes you have to fake it. So there's like such a place for skills, but there's kind of, it's all backed up by having that confidence and gravitas, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So yeah, it was interesting that it feels like kind of a lot of people are thinking about it at the moment. It's maybe a little bit of a buzzword in the industry.
yeah, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how we can really break it down for people so that they are confident about confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we were going to share a few little stories of our experience with confidence. Do you want to go? Do you want to tell us your one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was telling Kate earlier that one of the first kind of in my new role of the instances where I had to kind of fake it till you make it kind of situations was actually when I took my friend to like a wedding fair, and we arrived and I was not in work mode. I was very much in fun mode, and I was looking around the exhibitors and for her wedding that she was having, and actually I saw one of them that was just like a temporary tattoo artist, and I was like, they did like these little stickers and that you can make with like temporary tattoos on. And I was like, oh my God, that would be so perfect for Confex. And my friend was like, well, why don't you go and speak to her about it? I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I just couldn't kind of get my head around like not being in work mode. And I was like, but she's like, oh my God, but you're so confident. Like, you're all chatting away to everybody. And, you know, and my friend had to like really, really like sit me down and convince me to go and talk
G
to
you
her.
up.
Yeah, literally, like she had to convince me to talk to this woman, and I like went over there and I was like, hi, like, how are you? And I asked her about it, and she'd actually exhibited at Confex before, and I didn't know because obviously I'd not kind of really been on the event before. And she was like, yeah, I actually really loved it. I've not really heard anything about it since. And I was like, well, give me your card, like, let's have a chat about it. And so yeah, I like, as a marketer, I kind of was like, why would I be talking to somebody about sales? But obviously nobody else was there with me at the time because I wasn't at a work event. And so I actually got her details, and we've actually booked her in for a little stand, and it was like 18 days into closed one. So it actually, not being in work mode kind of helped me be more confident and being able to ask a woman about what her marketing plans were and to hopefully get Confex as part of that. And she did amazingly. She got like over 400 leads, including like some really big corporates like Coca-Cola and Trainline. And yeah, she did it absolutely amazingly while she was there. So it was such a success, not only for myself, like, because it was such a short lead time for it to close, but it was a success for her because she was also so confident in her unique product and service and selling point that, you know, we both did really well out of it.
That's so cool. I think it's interesting, like you mentioned, a success for you. And when you're feeling that lack of the nerves and anxiety of like, oh, I don't want to approach this person, what are they going to say? And like your friend saying, the worst thing they can say is no.
Yeah.
And then for it to end up in a win and a positive, that's what builds confidence, definitely for me, when you kind of put yourself out there and it works. And sometimes you put yourself out there and it doesn't work. And I kind of feel like that's a learning curve. That doesn't have to be a big negative that, you know, scars you forever. It can just be something that you can learn from. Before I tell you mine, there's some people watching. So if you want to tell us your experience with confidence, or if you want to ask us questions, we will attempt to answer them. So yeah, do say in the chat who you are, and kind of why you're listening, what your experience is with confidence or lack of confidence, if you'd like to. So my experience with kind of initial confidence when I started my business was that I was on maternity leave, and I was like 4 or 5 months into maternity leave. I knew that I wanted to start my own business, but I'd kind of done training like as a manager in the past, so I kind of knew that that's the route I wanted to go down, but didn't have any sort of business plan, didn't have anything formal, wasn't sure about topics, classic. But I was like 4 months into maternity leave, so that's fine. Went to a local business exhibition and bumped into, I won't say who she is, although she knows who she is now, went to a few hotel stands and chatted with them, and actually had my first booking on the spot. And she was like, oh great, yeah, we'll book you for October, which was in like 4 months time, like the month I was coming back from maternity leave, starting my own business. And that all came down from, I feel like I can say this, having the balls to go up, have a little bit of fake it till you make it. This is what I'm doing. I'm launching this business. Like, this is my kind of plan for it. Thinking, is it my plan? I don't know. And yeah, she booked me. I didn't tell her for years that she was about that story and that she was the first person and anything like that. But then it was a few years later, she was like, I think you were quite new. I was like, yes, I was very new. But it's similar to you, just having the confidence to rip off the bandage and be like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I always find it fascinating, kind of the way that it develops, and actually just that first step of being out of your comfort zone is just the smallest step. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a big room full of loads of people. It can be as simple as just speaking to one person and growing it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, what my favorite quote is, great things don't happen in comfort zones. And it doesn't matter what your comfort zone is, it doesn't matter how you're going to step out of it. But as long as you make those tiny baby steps each time, then you'll be amazed at where you get in a year's time. Because it doesn't need to be, like you say, a room full of people standing on stage. It can just be tiny little things that you chip away at. Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm going to share my screen and let's talk a little bit about gravitas. I think this is quite interesting because whilst confidence is what we're talking about and it's the feeling that you have, gravitas is the end result of how you come across. So I've got a little definition here. What does having gravitas mean? Seriousness and importance of manner, causing feelings of respect and trust in others. So it's about pitching yourself as the expert, thought leadership, that buzzword that people talk about within on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But actually coming across like that, whether it's virtually or in person. And essentially what you're trying to get is having respect and trust in others, in your clients, in your prospects, in people that you're talking to. Because like when you went up to that temporary tattoo lady, and like when I went up to that hotel company, we were faking it, but we came across trustworthy. We knew what we were doing. We were nervous, but we didn't let it show, and kind of instilled that trust.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that when we're like taking the steps to like look at all of that, we'll go into like that the formula of what you've created and like are sharing. It's the aura, it's the energy that you have. I think that there is different levels of seriousness and importance of manners, and figuring, I think sometimes it's actually just doing the research beforehand that can really help you determine how serious and how much kind of you can come across as like yourself. And I think I while I was on the call, I said actually sometimes I feel like I'm not coming across the best way because I have quite a big personality, and I think that sometimes I'm not kind of sure about where I'm placed in terms of like, especially when I first arrived in London with a proper Northern accent, and it was definitely interesting to kind of develop that and actually hone in on that skill and work on that skill for kind of multiple reasons, and really kind of figure out what that gravitas looks like for me.
And that's so interesting how people have different levels of gravitas. And I think also as salespeople, well, obviously you're a marketer, but as for me as a salesperson, I think it's really important to mirror the kind of gravitas that that the client or the prospect is bringing to, because like you said, you were feeling a little bit self-conscious about your big personality. It's kind of like you want to be authentic and show that big personality, but you also have to be a bit adaptable to realize that actually if you're talking to an introvert, a really quiet person, it probably is going to be a bit much for them. So it's just kind of having that, I guess, emotional intelligence around who you're speaking with. So we've got the gravitas equation here. Do let me know if you've seen it before. I can't take credit for it. It's from Caroline Goyder. She's in her gravitas, communicate with confidence, influence and authority. And I just thought it was really interesting of how you can of breaking it down into an equation. So we've got knowledge to start with, making sure that you know what you're talking about. As you said, Jeannie, you've done your homework before any sort of interaction. And then we've got plus purpose. We're going to delve into these a little bit more in a minute, but plus purpose, which is what you're there for, what your values are, what you're trying to say. And then passion, why you're doing it, why you're bothering. Hopefully you're passionate, even if you're fed up with your job or something, there'll be a reason why you're doing it. And then minus anxiety and nerves, we've got to take that out of the equation. So yeah, I agree. I think it's important, as you say, to have that background knowledge, that background research before you approach people, but then there are kind of other things that you want to come across, like your enthusiasm, your passion, your personality.
Yeah, and I think what we've literally just had a meeting with My Clear Text about accessibility, and there's little things that we're going to be implementing for this year to reduce people's anxiety. So things like showing what the entrances look like, and which specific doors you can come to, and training our staff on registration to really make sure that no matter who comes to them with wanting help, that they're there and they're able to provide that. And I think that will reduce, like, I think that's the biggest thing with a lot of events and a lot of event professionals, is sometimes that anxiety comes from not being able to be supported in the right way. And so for Confex, I know that we're really trying to make sure that we're reducing people's anxiety around the event as much as possible, so that you can really focus on their knowledge, their purpose, and their passion. I think that it's when you've got a big event like Confex, it can sometimes be a bit overwhelming and overstimulating. And but obviously when you're working on the show floor, if you're an exhibitor, things like knowledge is kind of hard to develop when you can't obviously like research all 5,000 people that are coming to the show. So it's kind of figuring out which is the most important in that gravitas equation that you can really focus on, so that you can try and reduce that anxiety as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're totally right. And also I think that everybody feels anxiety in a different way and for a different reason. Like, I know there's been a lot of emphasis on neurodiversity and being able to support people who do get overwhelmed and need a bit of quiet space. And I think it's so vital to protect that side of you. Like, I'm such an outgoing person, I'll talk to anyone, everything, but I do get at certain points of the show exhausted. It's like stimulation fatigue, isn't it? And when you're a salesperson, even more so when you're selling for your own business, you're kind of lining your own pockets essentially. You want to be firing on all cylinders, so to be able to offer that extra support is really great, to get rid of that pesky anxiety, and create a space for people to really shine. You were saying as well about you had a few kind of questions in your back pocket that you like to ask people, so that if you do feel a bit nervous, you've prepped regardless of who you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. I have like 5 questions I always kind of keep in my back pocket, and I think that quite a lot of people, at least in my company, think that I'm quite a good networker. And I think it's just actually relying on the same set of questions, because in the events industry, everyone's always going to have a next event. So they've either just worked on something or they're in the middle of working on their next event. And so asking somebody, what events have you got coming up? What events have you just finished on? And then I quite like the question like, what's an event recently that you went to that was joyful for you? Because obviously some people will have gone to a concert or comedy, and actually finding those little moments of inspiration doesn't necessarily always come from work. And so that's always good to find out what their purpose is beyond work. And then I always like asking what their biggest challenge is, because obviously that helps you build out their knowledge and being able to kind of support them and their pain points. So I always kind of like asking those 4 questions and variation. If you've not got anything to if you don't know the person, it's always a great starting point for when you're meeting somebody new.
Yeah, I really love that. Do you know, I reference this quite a lot in my training. When I was younger, my mum used to say to me, whenever you speak to anyone, just ask loads of questions, because people love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
And if you get somebody talking and then you take a little snippet of what they've just said and ask a question about it, and then a little snippet, that's how you get to know people. And actually in sales, especially when you're exhibiting, it's great, because you're just learning to then be able to respond to appropriately, if it's relevant to offer your services. So yeah, I love that, and I think that definitely ticks the box of building that trust and wanting to listen and learn about people so that you can, as I say, respond in the right way.
Yeah, and I think when you're on the show floor, we always have like a flow chart of answers. So like we'll be like, oh, do you organize events? Yes or no? And then like the salespeople can, when they're on the stand, they can go through this flow chart in their mind and be like, oh, well, they don't organize events, or they don't supply to the supply chain. So actually, then it's okay for you not to waste somebody's time and to figure out
Absolutely.
on the show floor, like if you're asking these questions, to really actually ask them the questions that will lead them to the right person, and be like, actually, do you know what, you're not the right person for us, but you should go speak to X, Y, or Z, and they'll be able to kind of help you out on that query, because then you're not wasting the person's time either, as well as your own.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're right, absolutely, at an exhibition and also in general working life. Time is the most valuable commodity, isn't it, as they say? And I think that we all have to protect our time, even more so as salespeople who are essentially, we've got to make money, we've got to convert. So essentially qualifying early, finding out if they're right or not through those questions is really helpful. And then comes your knowledge. Then you can adapt your knowledge dependent on what their questions are. Yeah, I love that. I'll stop sharing this gravitas equation now. As I say, if anyone watching's got any questions or anything, fire them in the chat. We'd love to help. We've got a couple of questions here which we were just kind of ask each other, and I think one which, to be fair, I get asked in workshops a lot is, how can you make sure that you're coming across confident even if you don't feel it, or you've got imposter syndrome, or you've had lots of rejection? How do you kind of keep that authority and keep that confidence up?
Yeah, I think that I like dressing for the job like you want, not the job you have. Like I really
I
do
love that.
wardrobe is really helps. And I also think that it's quite a great connector. So you can be like, oh my God, I love your shoes, I love your like handbag. It's a real conversation starter to kind of be dressed well and to compliment somebody within that, as almost as much as the weather. And I think that the preparation is kind of key. And then if you get a lot of rejection, I think maybe having just a mindset reset. I recently did a downloadable for Confex on like doing a summer reset, because I myself just needed one just to really kind of figure out. I was like, if I'm making one for myself, I might as well make it for the industry.
Good idea.
And just asking those questions, like, what needs an audit? Does my conversations need like testing? Each element, so that you can figure out, actually, do you know what? Starting with a question isn't working, but starting with a statistic is, and figuring out one by one, actually, what is the product, is it the service that that is getting you no's? Because ultimately then you need to change that. That's a fundamental thing. But like if you keep kind of getting off face with rejection, then you need to really kind of take a hard look at the pillars behind a lot of what you're doing. And I think just having a reset and a mindset reset can also help, at least in like the short term instance, to really make sure that what you're doing is and you're confident in what you're doing. I quite often will practice in the mirror. I love
that. That's so good.
Yeah, my friends are always sick of me. Like I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna practice a pitch to you. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this webinar and I would love to like do a little outro, or can I practice with you? Like my friends are always like, you are doing so much at work, and it's actually because I use them as my like support system to really help me kind of, because obviously if they can't understand it and they're not in the industry, how much of a hope in hell do I have to like actually get across my point to somebody in the industry? Like it's just as important that to be able to communicate effectively with normal not event people.
Normal people. Yeah, I think that's great. For me, it's so interesting that works so well for you, because for me, I would feel way less confident doing it to someone who didn't know what I was talking about than I'm such a like, I just have to go for it and do it. And I think if I, but it goes back to what you're saying about reflecting and knowing yourself and how you work. If I practice too much, it becomes like scripted, whereas I'm a lot better to kind of do it off the cuff. So I think it's great reflection, taking this summer to work out what you feel like is going well, what you feel like isn't going well. So yeah, I think that's great. I think for me, in terms of kind of overcoming objections, I guess, an example is we put our, well, in 2023, I'd say roughly, we weren't getting any price objections. People were booking us pretty quickly on the spot, and which is obviously great. But by 2024, I was reflecting on it and thinking, actually, I do want to get some price objections. I don't want to be the people that people just book. I want to, I feel like if I get a couple of price objections, I'm hitting a sweet spot of how much we're charging. And I promise this moves into confidence in a minute. And therefore, recently, I think we've had about 3 people say they're going elsewhere because of price, and that's the sweet spot for me, because everyone else is booking us, and some people are saying you're too pricey, which means I'm hitting it at the right price point personally. So in terms of confidence, I think it's working out what you're happy with, and if you're happy with some people saying no and the reasons they're saying no, there's other reasons for objections obviously within business. So there might be objections where the content isn't right. I wouldn't be happy with that. I mean, if it's sales content, I wouldn't be happy with that. But if it was like, actually we want something that's more based around marketing, I would be like, but it's not for us then. So it's kind of using those negatives and thinking, no, but I'm happy with that. So even though there's objections and things going wrong, how do I feel about it? And that helps kind of boost my confidence for when things are going right as well.
Yeah.
But it's tricky to be honest, and a lot of it, for want of a better phrase, is fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting kind of reflecting on our own experiences with confidence and lack of confidence and winning deals because of certain situations. The kind of common denominator I think we've probably found is that it's putting on a front a lot of the time. And smiling and making eye contact, and that gravitas equation is definitely relevant. You've got to have knowledge in what you're selling, what you're talking about, and you've got to have a passion for it and a drive and a purpose. But actually, that anxiety, whilst it's there, you can often overcome that by putting a smile on, pretending you're on stage.
Yeah, and I think that there is always going to be little takeaways and little rituals almost about how you go through and pre-prepare personally for meetings and sales teams and events themselves. But I mean, I think that when you kind of get thrust into like, actually, do you know what, the speaker's late, so I'm going to have to go on stage and tell the audience that the speaker's going to be late by 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's all those like little moments that I think kind of build up that confidence over time. But it can also be, a good night's sleep, having, drinks a lot of water. There's all these little things that, are personal to you that you need to figure out what that routine looks like, so that you can minimize that, like as you said, that minimize that anxiety, but also prepare so that you're optimized the most for the rest of the gravitas equation.
I find my little hack that I always do is taking a really deep breath. So before I go onto a Teams call, before I go into a workshop, before I go on stage, I just breathe in, like really slowly, close my eyes, and it grounds me a bit. And I find that I talk slower after doing that. I'm not as like frantic because I'm not rushing and stressing about it. So yeah, everyone has their own little hacks. Find your little hack of faking confidence.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, this is the first session of several where we're talking about confidence, and we're also talking about sales techniques within the industry. We're talking about exhibition techniques, talking about face-to-face selling and how to kind of get over hurdles. So please do join us. We've obviously done this one on YouTube, but we're going to do the rest as Instagram lives. And actually we're going to do them on I think it's a Thursday evening, isn't it, with a glass of wine and a fireside chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please do join us. Follow Selling Savvy on Instagram and Mash Media and Confex on Instagram. And we will see you then. Look out for our first date. I think it's end of August. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much. Nice to see you, Gina.
And you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.